It's been a pretty rough start for Stalker 2. With a large amount of bugs and performance issues at launch, it just wasn't a good experience to play. And in fact, even GSC Game World pretty much recognized this, because as soon as the game was released, they started patching. In fact, this Polygon article talks about how Stalker 2 has been patched roughly every 2 business days since launch. This was back in early December, just a few weeks after release. Like, GSC knew that, like, yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done with this game. A lot of people will cite performance as a main issue, which this game definitely still has that aspect to it, but there are ways around it to where the game can function properly if you have the proper hardware, or if you're just willing to play at like a lesser frame rate than you're used to. And the bugs are definitely still out there, but that thousands of them have been fixed at this point, where they actually have gone through and fixed so many things that now that when you play the game, you don't really notice anything weird happening anymore, which is fantastic. You know, there's still a little thing here or there, like I had an issue where like a person's desk notes were like floating above the world for whatever reason, but not anything that would just completely break the experience. But a big thing for me at the release of this game that made me uninstall the entire thing was the fact that A-Life wasn't working, and the way the spawns worked for the NPCs just wasn't how the game is supposed to be. But now GSC has A-Life up and functioning now at this point. I think there's still room for improvement right now when it comes to how the AI work in this game, but it's a huge thing about playing a single player game. If your NPCs and your enemy combatants aren't functioning properly, then the game doesn't function properly, and it's not playing to the true vision of what they wanted you to experience for this game. Hence why I made a video talking about why I actually uninstalled Stalker 2, but now I recently installed it after the recent patches, and I gotta say, I'm hooked. And you can just look at the Steam reviews and how the graph is kind of working out, while the negative reviews are essentially gone. So in this video, we're going to talk about how GSC did the impossible and turned this game around incredibly fast and made Stalker 2 such an awesome experience. So make sure you stay tuned throughout the whole video to understand all the details. So I want to start this video out just talking about the effort that GSC Game World has gone into fixing up Stalker 2 in such an incredibly fast period of time. If you count the day 1 patch that technically wasn't a patch for the release of the game, there's been 7 major updates since the launch of the game. And at the time of making this video, that's 5 weeks. And of course, I absolutely appreciate the effort that they've gone to put in these patches. I mean, like a lot of patches, especially just as of recently. Right here we had the 1.1 patch, which really turned the game around. It was on the 19th, but then the next day on the 20th, you get the 1.1.2, the patch of the patch. And then you had the patch of the patch on the 22nd as well. So it's one of those things where it's like, I appreciate the effort, right? Like especially the 1.1 patch, fixing 1,800 bugs in just this patch alone, which is insane to think that like thousands of bugs have been fixed since the launch of this game. But since this game's been updated so many times, it makes me go like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna take a seat, step back a little bit, and just let them fix the game. And once it's in a good state, I'll jump back in and play. And that's where I'm at right now with Stalker 2. And it's really just because I'm tired of games releasing in buggy, unfinished states, and then you have to wait for like a year for this game to update to be functional. And I was expecting a full year of delays of patching the game up, waiting for A-Life to work, making sure the performance is up and running properly so it's actually playable for an FPS game. But they actually did it within a month, which is just shocking to me. So I decided just to kind of take a moment back from Stalker 2 and just wait for GSC to do their thing with the game and come back to it at a certain time. That's kind of what I'm doing right now through Cyberpunk 2077, where I tried playing through at launch. It was just not a good experience. But now playing through it again, it's phenomenal. And these devs are not even done when it comes to updating the game right now. As stated right here, so they will be sharing more content, especially a roadmap, when it comes to 2025 for Stalker 2, which gets me excited because with the 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.13 updates, that the game's a fun, playable experience now, and I'm actually looking forward to playing Stalker 2. And I'm just really happy that I waited to play this game, and I'm surprised it only took a month. Now, another thing I definitely want to touch on when it comes to Stalker 2 is the performance of the game. This was a big issue for me when I first started playing this, really just because of dropping so far below 60. Like, I can handle like a dip below 60 here and there, especially for how graphically beautiful this game is currently on the Unreal Engine. But the way it was performing, especially when going in the towns, oh my god, dude, it was like sub 40 frames. Like, it was really rough. Even showcasing right here from Digital Foundry's video, Like when you get into the 40s when it comes to a frame rate, especially when this guy's playing on a 4090, like you don't buy a 4090 to play at 40 frames, all right? That wasn't supposed to be the correlation that's supposed to happen there. And I would say that Stalker 2 definitely has this current issue where a lot of games I feel like are kind of starting to lean into a little bit more of relying on DLSS, relying on frame generation for the game to be in a functional state for people to play. Because if you're not playing with frame generation on, it is pretty rough. You get this type of performance when you're playing. It is not a good experience, and I don't really see that ever really changing anytime soon. So if you're not able to play with frame generation, then you might be having some issues, but luckily for me, playing on a 3080, I can maintain roughly 60 frames. Now it does add a little bit of input delay, which I'm not a big fan of that either, but it's playable enough to where after a few moments you don't really experience it too much, and still ends up being a fun experience. Like I'm especially playing on mouse and keyboard, where how fast some of these creatures and AI move out in the world. It's pretty tough to actually track some of them on mouse and keyboard with the lack of aim assist. But for the most part, I would say that really, like, as long as you have frame generation on, it plays in DLSS, at least on quality, you're going to be having a good experience. But again, those type of features really shouldn't be something reserved to have playable frame rate experiences. They should be features available for people who want to push the envelope even more when it comes to their graphics. If they want like 120 frames, 144 frames, 240 frames, if they want it for Stalker 2, that's what like DLSS and frame generation is really kind of for, not to make the game playable. And I fully assume to see GSC still put the effort into optimization to make this game a smoother experience for so many people out there, especially for me playing on PC. I'm not quite sure how it is with you guys out there on consoles, but even look at like even the performance mode on the Series X showcasing sub 60 frames when it comes to like a weather effects coming, which are a crucial part of the game as well. But for me, at least on my end of things, playing on PC, that things are actually running very well. But something like improving performance takes time. But I feel like this game's always going to be tied to making sure you have DLSS and frame gen on to make it a playable experience. Plus, there are a ton of great videos out there showcasing how to improve your frame rate. This one from Benchmark King, I think it was a really great video showcasing each setting, what it does to the game, so you can make up your choice of how you want your game to run. I pretty much just ran whatever the settings he suggested on this one, and it seemed to work out pretty well for me. Another reason why I stopped playing Stalker 2 is really because of the bugs that were happening with this game, and there weren't anything that was like egregiously terrible, right? Nothing that was like, oh my god, I can't even play the game, where I know some people even had issues where they couldn't even complete missions, which some of these patches did fix, but some of my issues were more kind of like technical kind of experiences that really got in the way of playing Stalker 2. Like within the first 5 minutes of me playing, I wasn't able to record this because my shadow play recording was acting weird with this game for some reason, that when I tried playing and then like I went to my menu and then went back out, my opacity was down to like 5% for whatever reason. So I had to like kind of figure out like how to get the UI to start working again in the game, which like is not what I want to do when I play a game. When I play a game, especially like a game like Stalker 2, I want to be in the world, I want to be immersed, I want to be in the game, you know, and having to deal with functionalities of the game just working properly, that it takes me out of the entire experience. Like okay, again, I'll just sit back and wait, you know, kind of thing. No, I've seen, you know, plenty of videos online where people having their own issues when it comes to the various bugs that were going on with Stalker 2, and it's just something that you're okay, well, just, you know, it ruins the experience of, especially of a single player game, especially with a game where your senses matter so much, right? Being able to hear what's out in the wild, out in the wilderness, right? Listening for like when you hear those pig squeals, you're like, oh no, we got pig monsters coming in, I gotta run. Or hearing like the rustle of a bush of like, hey, a bloodsucker's gonna come up and get you. Like that requires a lot of immersion, and having to deal with bugs that will basically take you out of the experience, remind you that you're playing a game, right? You're not focused on what you're doing, you're focused on just having the game function properly. And I would say after all these patches GSC have gone through, that I've experienced them far less out. They're still out there. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, there was like one scene where I went to the doctor to try to get like my myself patched up a little bit, and I saw that even S.t.a.l.k.e.r had the same kind of issue as well in his review video, showcasing like a piece of paper right here just kind of floating out in the middle of nowhere. Like these things still kind of happen. I think what happened is I ended up like going to sleep and then coming back to the scene a little bit later, and it was back in its normal place. So there's still little things like that will happen, but I don't know, maybe it's just kind of like those anomalies that I was told about in my last video, that like, no, it's just a GSC game. There's just anomalies that happen. And like, okay, yeah, I get it, like, haha, they're funny little bug things like that will happen, but nothing too game breaking, right? Seeing like a little piece of paper floating, it's not gonna stop me from enjoying the game, but it just kind of just take you out of the moment a little bit, you know what I mean? Now, a big reason why I actually uninstalled Stalker 2 after just a couple hours of playing, it's not just because of the bugs or the bad performance. Some of that stuff you can kind of get through, but I felt like I wasn't playing the true experience that GSC Game World wanted us to play. And that's because A-Life 2.0 just wasn't working. Stated here even in an IGN article talking from the game devs themselves, talking about what went wrong with A-Life and why was it not there at the launch of the game, which if you guys don't know, like, it's a crucial part of what makes Stalker 2 so interesting. Basically, A-Life, if you're not familiar, gives the NPCs within your world like missions to do. They patrol the world, they go out and they do other things. They actually will like upgrade their characters, they'll get into gunfights and things like that. You know, make the world feel alive, something beyond what you're just meant to interact with, which is crucial for a game like this. And stated in this article that basically they had to just postpone A-Life 2.0 because of the performance it being so rough and so tied to your CPU, that trying to have proper A-Life working at the time of this game launch just wasn't a possibility at all. But with the recent patch, you actually will come across NPCs walking throughout the world, enemy or foe, and also the different type of beasts and animals you can fight against as well, will just be out in the world, moving around, experiencing the world. And I actually have had so many unique experiences that you wouldn't have anywhere else besides in Stalker 2. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So for this mission, Warlock's Deader, like again, like I didn't really play much because the game was so buggy, but this is a perfect example of why A-Life was so crucial for this game to function as a different experience, right? So the idea of this mission here is you're supposed to talk to Valak Lemix, who has some kind of information or, you know, assets that people want, right? You walk up to this barn or building here, and basically Lemix is being held captive by these bad guys right here. They want what he has. And basically you have a choice of decision to either go up to the water tower right here or talk to Lemix himself to try to convince, like, hey man, can I be the mediator? Can I be the guy who figures this out for you? And for this mission right here, and from what I've seen online as well, that, again, this is just funny watching them just try to walk forward. It's just hilarious. Again, more bugs like that, but that stuff was fixed. That nothing really exciting happened, right? It was just like two people in a stand-up, you talk about it. You see here that like eventually you do get sent up to the top of the water tower. You do get the assets that are in there. And he comes back to the NPCs right here. And you go like, hey, there was no artifact. And basically the guy goes, yeah, okay, BS. We're going to start a gunfight with you all here. And that's pretty straightforward. Nothing really dynamic or anything. Like, it's all kind of according to plan. But when I played it with A-Life 2.0 actually functioning, that's not what happened at all. Because what happened when I played this mission, that a roaming bloodsucker just came into the middle of everything when I was trying to go up to the water tower, which then aggroed these NPCs to start attacking me as well as the bloodsucker. The bloodsucker was not killed. It did help kill some of these enemies, which was great, but then it was up to me to take out this bloodsucker that was invisible that I couldn't find. And well, basically I was kind of screwed. So I took on this bloodsucker that luckily I had some stalker friends on a patrol because of A-Life 2 come involved with the situation and helped me out take out this bloodsucker because I wanted to complete this mission because I still needed to talk to Valak in the situation. Now, of course, some necessary sacrifices were made, but you can see how the fact of just like this organic situation happening, which would have just been a typical like, yes, no, you're the bad guy, I'm gonna kill you situation, became to this completely organic, random ass battle, which caused total chaos. But it was from my playthrough that I don't really think many other people would have experienced this as I did, creating a unique story that you probably wouldn't have in any other game. Here's another example where I completed a mainline mission and then I walked out, and normally without A-Life you would just walk back to base, but then I saw a notification like, hey, there are bad guys out here, and I saw them shooting. They were actually getting in a fight with some feral dogs out there. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little spicy, and I'll help out my stalker friends that got damaged in this gunfight as well. Take out the bad guys, heal up my stalker friends so they can eventually help me out later on, as well as pick up some nice little loot that was dropped from all these bad guys out here, which, again, If A-Life wasn't working, I would have just gone back to base. Would have been kind of boring. I would have now gone on this new excursion because of what I could do with A-Life in the game. Final example here, I just want to showcase why A-Life working in the game is crucial for this game to function as a unique experience. I was going back to the base after completing a mission, and then I saw that there was some bad guys out there. I aggroed them. They started coming after me a little bit, and even though I was doing all right, keeping my space and then trying to make sure I wasn't getting overran by this little alcove of bad guys in the way, but I couldn't really find the last guy. But a really cool thing that happened is that I had a patrolling group of stalker friends come in and actually help me finish out this little alcove of people. As you can see over here on this left side, where a gunfight just starts happening again organically from just playing the game. They get notifications like, hey, there's gunshots happening here. What's happening? Let's go check it out. Oh, bad guys are attacking, so let's go attack those bad guys, which makes it such a cool, unique experience that you don't really have anywhere else in an open world shooter games. So I am so glad I waited and just didn't power through all the bugs and the issues to actually play through Stalker 2, and now I'm completely hooked. I'm playing through it, having a blast, and really suggest that if you guys are playing on Game Pass, give this game a download. It's amazing, right? Just play it. Come on, just do it. If you made it this far in the video, I hope I earned a like, maybe even a subscribe, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace out.